Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Teaching Tales. I am Brent Coley, your host, and joining me today is my good friend and amazing educator, the one, the only, Tim Bedley.
Hi.
Tim, how are you, Tim?
Doing great.
Fantastic.
Thanks for allowing me to talk to your huge audience.
To Mom and Dad? Mom,
Yeah.
say hi to Mom and Dad.
Hi, Mom and Dad.
All right. So, well, thank you. Again, I know I tapped you right away and said, hey, Tim, you got to come and tell some stories because I know you got some good ones, and thank you for agreeing. Tim, for those who don't know about your awesomeness, tell our listeners a little about yourself.
About my awesomeness?
You can talk about, I'll talk about your awesomeness. You just give us a little background
There's
about.
nothing to tell.
No.
Well, I'm a fifth grade teacher. I teach in Lake Elsinore, and I'm in my 29th year of teaching. Been teaching since I was 6, so yeah.
Wow.
Since I'm only 35 now.
You look amazing.
and train teachers, make kids music, educational music, and have fun.
Rocking the standards, right?
Rocking the standards, yep.
With no G.
With no G, rocking no G.
Rocking the standards with no G.
Yeah.
And you do some amazing stuff. I remember a few years ago I came and got to spend a day in your classroom, your gallery learning, the whole whiteboards. Just briefly, tell people about that.
Well,
what you do.
Yeah, a few years ago, a colleague of mine said, come check out, what I'm doing with my kids, and he had whiteboards all around his walls, and I'm like, what is that thing called? It's awesome. I just saw the engagement level and the feedback and everything, and I Googled it. I couldn't find much of anything. There was some thing on PBS or something about it, and that was about it. So I thought, well, if there's nothing out there, then I'm going to create ideas for myself and collaborate with other people. And so that's what I've been doing the last few years, is just coming up with ways to now that you have whiteboards all over your walls, what are you going to do with it? How is that going to impact your teaching and your kids? And so, just been coming up with all kinds of ideas and sharing them with other people on how to engage your students with a whiteboard-lined classroom.
Yeah, because the kids are up, they're moving, they're constantly, the blood is flowing in their legs and their. I mean, it was awesome to watch. So.
The main thing is just being able to have instant feedback all the time.
Yeah.
And I had an experience of using it for a while, and then for some reason I didn't do it one day. Had the kids sitting on the floor in a little group, and it drove me nuts. I realized how much I appreciated it because I was like, I want to see what you're doing. I want to see what you're doing. You see every step along the way, which is different than having the kids write on a whiteboard on their desk and then hold it up and show it to you.
It's truly formative. It's when they're forming their answers.
Yes. You can tell when somebody's stuck instantly. You can give them feedback right away. I can stand in the middle of the room with my laser and point at stuff and just give them real quick feedback and just get lots of kids.
And you just went to Home Depot or something like that, and
Home Depot, Lowe's. I think I went to Lowe's, and the boards are cheap. Had them cut them for me there and screwed them onto the wall and asked for forgiveness after they were on the wall. So awesome. Well, Tim. Stories, and when we talked about, hey, what do you want to talk about? Kind of our theme for this broadcast is we're going to tell our stories about how we got into education, how we became a teacher. So, because not everybody has the same path into the career of education as others. So, why don't you start? Okay.
Tell us how did you become a teacher, Tim Bedley?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Actually, my dad is a well-known educator, won the PTA National Educator of the Year, and so I think what that did for me was make me not want to be a teacher. And so I was going down the path of business. I liked organizing things. I liked running my own little businesses growing up and in playing, as a kid. And so I thought, that's what I want to do. So I majored in business marketing, got out of school, and had a job right out of college that I was working for a financial planner. Now, I was always one of these, A-B students, oldest child in the family, did everything by the book and, how I was supposed to do it. And I was sat down by my boss at the financial planner after a few months, and they said, we're going to let you go. And I'm like, what? Oh. No. I'm Tim Bedley. You don't fire Tim Bedley.
That's not how it works.
That's not how it works.
Did you not get the memo?
Yeah. So I won't go into the whole story. I didn't do anything wrong. I just wasn't the person that they wanted to groom into becoming the next planner in their company.
Sure.
So that led me to get a job working for a tape, adhesives, sandpaper, and safety supplies company. Doesn't that just sound like me? Selling those things to manufacturers.
Oh, wow.
And so, I was having a good time. I'm sitting at a desk. I got a mile of catalogs in front of me, and I'm answering the phone, and I'm learning the products. And Tony Veroni, my boss, comes to me one day and says, the reason we hired you is because you have your degree, and so we want to send you out into the field because we want you to work your way into management. So sitting behind the desk and taking orders, that's not why we hired you. We can hire anybody to do that. We want you to work your way into management. So I'm like, oh, okay. I had some sales jobs before that, and I absolutely hated them. I'm not real good with rejection. So,
and in sales, the majority of your calls are going to be rejection.
Totally. So he's like, okay, you're going to go out there. Here's your kit, of supplies, and you're going to go meet with purchasing agents and tell them about our tapes and all these things that I was so passionate about, glue and stuff like that.
Riveting stuff. Dude.
Yeah,
riveting.
And so I get out there, and I didn't even want to. I mean, I'd walk in with my kit, my sales case or whatever, and the guard at the front, the secretary looks at you, and of course, the minute everybody sees you, their head drops, and they're like, oh, another salesman. Here comes a salesman. And I didn't want to be that guy.
Sure.
And so I just started going to these little tiny businesses where somebody would actually talk to me.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to make any money doing that. I got to sell to big companies. I was dreading my job. I did not want to wake up every day and go to work. And so one day, literally it happened like this. Sunday morning, I'm laying in bed and I'm thinking, now my wife, who's a teacher, is making $10,000 more a year than I'm making. And she is now on her spring break. And I'm working, and I get my 2 weeks off a year. Why did I never ever think of becoming a teacher? I mean, it didn't cross my mind because I think I was just, subconsciously avoiding following in Dad's footsteps.
Wasn't even an option because...
Wasn't even an option. So literally, I just woke up that morning, and I looked at my wife, and I said, I want to be a teacher. And she's like, what? I'm like, yeah, I want to be a teacher. I used to be a youth pastor. I like working with kids. I worked for the YMCA and the after-school program. This sounds like a cool thing. So the next day, actually that day, I think, I called my old boss from college, my painting boss, and I said, I'm thinking about going back to school and getting my credential. This is in about February or March, And right after I got married, a great time to be switching careers, right? And I said, can I work part-time for you while I'm going to school? Hey, no problem. Okay, I got that ducking, I got that lined up. So then, maybe Tuesday of that week, we made an appointment and went to UCI where my wife got her credential. Went there and met with a counselor, and lo and behold, the day before was the beginning of the new quarter. So I woke up the day before the quarter started and decided I wanted to be a teacher.
Is that
crazy?
Did you start the next day?
So no, because I met with her on Tuesday or Wednesday or something, and she's like, "Well, the quarter started Monday, and you'll have already missed a class or two, but it's no big deal." And then my dad actually, the whole Gene Bedley thing came in handy at this point in time because she's like, "I've got an intern position down in Dana Point. Hang on a second." She gets on the phone, the counselor does. She calls, I got Gene Bedley's son up here, and he wants to be a teacher, and send him on down. I'm like, okay, sweet. So I go into work the next day, and I said, I'm going to go back to school. I'm giving you my 2-week notice. They said, oh, well, we don't want a salesman, a short-timer salesman out there in the field. You're fine. You can just leave today. And so I'm like, okay.
Thank you very much.
So by that Friday, I woke up Sunday, right, deciding I was to be a teacher. By that Friday, I was in the classroom in Dana Point, starting my observations. The following week, I was starting my classes and on my way to becoming a teacher. And then the following fall, so this is I don't remember exactly, February or March. The next fall, I was in the classroom with my own class, making half of a teacher's salary, and loving every minute of my job, working until 8 o'clock at night, and never looked back. I've never had a single day where I've heard this from so many teachers.
No regrets.
No regrets. I've never woke up in the morning and thought, I'm dreading going to work today. And I was dreading every day I went to work trying to sell sandpaper and glue. So the timing was just unbelievable. So I want to know how you got into teaching.
Well, it's funny, as you were telling that story, I'm thinking like, now mine was not exactly the woke up one day and became a teacher that Friday, but being a teacher was never something I really considered as an option. I wanted to be a computer programmer.
Really?
Growing up, yep. I remember, especially I was a junior in high school, and they had one of those career days, and our next door neighbor was a computer programmer. And I remember shadowing him, going to his business, and thinking like, oh yeah, this is totally what I want to do. When people ask me why are you a teacher, the short answer is because I couldn't do calculus. That's the short answer. Because when I went to the JC, went to Palomar College, doing my GE there, and I was on the track to transfer to UCSD into their computer science program. To do so, I had to take 4 semesters at Palomar of calculus, just at the JC. And calculus wasn't my thing. And in all fairness, I was more interested in beach volleyball and things like that at the time. So
Girls?
Well, yes, that too.
Okay.
That too. But I was not putting 100% of my energies into my calculus studies. But first semester, I got a D. Second semester, I took it again, or not even second semester. I took that class over, I got a B. Second semester comes around, so the second class, I take it again, got another D. And I remember thinking, I don't have time to take everything twice. I can't.
And you don't seem like a D student.
I was like you. I was
Yeah.
an A and B student.
Yeah.
I was an A and B student, but I really had to work at calculus. And I remember kind of going back to you. You woke up that one day thinking like, I'm going to be a teacher. I so vividly remember sitting in the living room with my mom and dad and talking about this, because teaching was never it was never really an option. Not because, I mean, my mom was a teacher, but I didn't avoid it because my mom was a teacher. My dad has taught Sunday school and taught in the church his whole life too.
Yeah,
But
episode 6.
that's right. Episode 6 had my dad. So very good conversation. He's a teacher in a different classroom. But I remember sitting and talking with him. It's like, well, maybe I should be. Maybe teaching could be something I could do. I'd always in school thought teaching would be fun. Like, you know, those times you're in a math class or whatever, and the teacher is explaining something, and the kids aren't getting it.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, you just need to say it this way. And the kid, I remember kind of arrogantly as a 16-year-old kid thinking, if he only said it this way, he would understand it. So I always thought it would be fun, but it was never an option because, doggone it, I'm going to be a computer programmer.
And you're going to make good money.
I'm going to make
and teachers don't make good money.
I'm going to make good money.
Yeah.
But I couldn't do the calculus. And I remember sitting with my mom and dad in that living room, and I remember what my dad saying. He said, Brent, if that's what you want to do, absolutely. Then I mean, we're going to support you with that, meaning computer programming. But understand, this is at the JC. You're going to be going up the competition that you're going to be going up against kids who roll out of bed
And
doing
live
calculus.
calculus.
It is a breeze to them. And I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm saying, do you want to do it? Is that what you want to do? And at that point, I said, no. No, I don't. I'm going to be a teacher. Very, very similar. I was like, you know what? That's it. I'm going to be a teacher. It was the first day of the semester. Ironically, going back to your story, it was the first day. Like I'd already had the first day of the semester. We had this talk that night. I went in the next day and totally changed my major. Totally tried to crash a bunch of classes. And long story a little shorter. Changed my and completely went down a different path. Transferred to Cal State Fullerton, a child development major. Got my credential and. The rest is history. This is year 21. I taught for 15 years. I'm in year 6 as an administrator now. And the beauty of it is I like ed tech. I like the
You combined both passions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When I did my classroom website, when I podcasted with kids, and I was getting to do both of those things. I was getting to work with kids, teach, which I love, but also get to do that computer programming. But so what lesson? Because you didn't. Again, I think both of our stories. I mean, how often have you heard somebody say like, "Well, I knew I was going to be a teacher when I was I was second grade, and I used to play school at home, and I didn't do that."
No,
you didn't. You didn't do that. And there's nothing wrong with that.
I was being prepared in a sense. I mean, I look back now, and I think all the things that I did that come into play in what I do as a teacher.
Yeah,
I was definitely being prepared, but it wasn't something I longed for. No, one of the things that I think is a huge deal for us as teachers is to take somebody like my story here and say, well, if I had not gone to college, I would not be a teacher today. I mean, I have to face that reality. If I would have gone to, and just said, I'm going to go mow lawns and work at whatever and paint, like I was a painter, and just be a painter, if I would have woken up at 24 years old and decided after I'm just married and I've got a house payment to make and all that stuff, and just said, I'm going to be a teacher, the answer is no.
Yeah, because you haven't done the prerequisites.
Exactly. So I could switch careers because I jumped through all those hoops and I was willing to put the sweat in to get my degree. Now all of a sudden I've got options.
Yeah, I
can suck it up for a few months and go paint and work on getting my credential. But if I had to go back for 5 years at that point in time, there's no way I could have spent 5 years going back to school.
Yeah.
So I want the message to my students to be, I mean, you and I both see eye to eye, and I know from your other interviews as well, that college is not the end-all for every kid.
Mm-mm.
And trade school is a great idea. Some people, some of my most successful friends never went to college.
Yep.
And that's fine, but that's an anomaly.
Yeah.
And so I want my students to know, go to college, do the things. You're not going to necessarily know what you want to do until later in life. Mm-hmm. And if you set yourself up for multiple choices and multiple paths by making good decisions, that's the best route that you can go in.
Yeah.
And I teach my kids all the time that really education gives you choices, it gives you power. That if you're 25 years old and you mow lawns or whatever, there's nothing wrong with that.
Sure.
I mean, if somebody wants to do that, that's how they. I mean, I have a friend.
There's people who own their own landscaping companies are making more than we are.
Oh yeah, they are. Oh yeah, they are. But I mean, if that's what you're doing and you have no education and you wake up and you say, "I want to be a doctor," that's not going to happen.
I don't want to be a landscaper.
I don't want to be. But if you went to medical school and you wake up and say, "I want to mow lawns instead of being a doctor," you can do it. You can do it.
Yeah.
So you got to think it through and make decisions that are going to give you the most options down the road. And that's a message that I want to get through to my kids, even at a young age of 5th grade, that as they're starting to see their future and plan things out, make some good decisions so that you do have that freedom that if you end up being a Tim Bedley someday and figure out what you want to do at 24, you can actually do it. So.
And you said that doing things to prepare you. Before we hit record, we were saying that we were kind of joking that you said like, I'm never going to be a principal, and I said that's what I used to say. Yet here I sit as a principal, and I would have bet the farm when people said, "Oh, you want to be a principal someday? Are you crazy?" No, no way.
Yeah.
I would have bet every cent in my bank account at the time. No way. 2 things that I said I would never do. Never go to middle school, and I'll never become an administrator.
And that's where you started your administration.
I did. In one fell swoop. My first, leaving the classroom, I went to middle school as an assistant principal. And even it's like, I'm not sure if I want to be a principal someday, but I look back now, the experiences that I had those 15 years in the classroom, but also the experiences as an assistant principal at the middle school level at the time, because I spent my whole teaching career in elementary, and then to go to a completely new level.
Oh yeah,
it was a culture shock, and I experienced things and encountered things that I'd never seen before, never experienced before. And at the time, thinking, oh my gosh, sometimes why am I going through this type thing? So I think that's my lesson learned, and my encouragement to anyone listening is, if you're going through something, whether it's maybe you got changed grade levels, maybe like, well, I'm a 5th grade teacher and I got moved down to 1st grade. Why did this happen? You never know what this is preparing you for.
Totally.
Because now that I'm back at the elementary level as a principal, I look back on those 2 years as an assistant principal, and yes, I encountered some difficult things, but the growth that I experienced then, and things now, the perspective that I gained. Now I mean, because I dealt with so much there, I now see it here, and it's like, that's nothing. I mean, whether it's the kids are getting a little pushing match or something, that's not a fight, guys. I mean, unfortunately, I saw a few fights, and perspective, it completely prepared me here, even though at the time, I there's no way that I would have understood it.
Yeah, and that makes me think of another thing that I learned from going back, and just thinking back about this is, we got to let kids. I'm looking at myself as being a kid, even at in college years. We got to let kids fail, go their own path, because what that ends up producing is someone that's got more resolve about where they are. So because you spent that time in the middle school, I spent a year in middle school too. I thought, in fact, when I went into the counselor at UCI, I said, I want to teach middle school, because that's what I did for youth group. And so that whole I waited 10 years probably or so before I taught middle school in the public school setting. And boy, am I glad I did that 1 year of middle school. Because now I know for sure that I never want to teach middle school. Whereas for 29 years now, I might be thinking, there's a middle school opening. Maybe I should go for that. Maybe I know without a doubt. And I also know without a doubt that I'm not going to go into business. I'm not going to go into marketing. I'm not going to go into sales. I stink at those things and I don't like them.
Yeah.
But if I didn't experience them, if somehow my dad would have seen in me, because my dad's awesome, if he would have looked at me and said, I can tell that my son would be a good educator and I should really steer him in that direction. If I would have gone straight into education, or maybe straight into middle school education.
You wouldn't have had those other experiences
I'm so glad that I screwed it up along the way,
Well, I think I waited tables in college.
Yeah, that's a good experience.
For like 5 years.
Yeah.
And people sometimes raise an eyebrow or laugh when I say that waiting tables was some of the best experience to become a teacher and now an administrator. How so, Brent? Let me tell you. You're constantly dealing with the public, customers, because students in the classroom, students are our customers.
And the parents.
And then now students are the customers and the parents.
Yes.
And as often would happen, customers aren't always happy. The food is cold, it's not what they ordered, something's wrong. And the whole, how am I going to deal with that? How am I going to deal with that? But those days where you came into work and you weren't in the best mood, you're an actor.
You have to squash it.
You can have the scowl, the frown on your face back in the kitchen, but as soon as you walk out that door and you hit the floor, you better turn that frown around. You better turn it on, smile. Hey, how we doing today? What can I get for you, ladies?
Yeah.
It's the same thing in the classroom. It's the same thing in the classroom. It's the same thing in the office. If I'm having a bad day, suck it up and fake it.
Yeah.
Fake it for the kids, because
that's what's best for them.
That's what's best for them. And during recess, if you want to close the door and put your head down and cry, okay, because you're having and there were days where I've done that, where we've all done that. And again, now as an administrator, same type of thing. I got a parent who, Mr. Coley, someone wants to speak to you. They're upset about X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
Okay. Somebody doesn't like their food. Okay. How I got 6 years of practicing, nearly 6 years of practicing dealing with
customers.
Happy and unhappy customers, and now, unfortunately, it's not the best part of the job, but it's part of the job. Yeah. It's my job to.
You have to be proficient at that,
or you're not going to last.
No.
Or you're not going to last.
Yeah, so, I've always said that teaching is 1/4 preparation and 3/4 theater.
Well, you think how many actors when they're trying to get their big break, they're waiting tables.
Yep.
I mean, the world is the stage, so is the floor of a restaurant. So.
And so was our classroom.
So was our classroom, and really,
and it's really sales too. I mean, as much as I didn't want to get into sales, now I'm selling, ideas.
You're selling ideas,
education.
You're selling.
Yeah.
You're selling
having to motivate kids.
And you're selling experiences that you want them going home, just like somebody going home after a play, thinking, "Wow, what a great play that was."
Yep.
You want your kids to go home thinking, "Wow, I experienced something. What great theater we had today at school." Oh.
Yeah, all those experiences just make us who we are, and we don't want to curse any of them. You know, they're all good.
Everything happens for a reason. You and I are men of faith, and we know that when we go through things that we may not see it now, but at some point down the road, that's going to come in handy.
Yep.
That's going to come in handy.
Oh yeah, there are no accidents,
Nope.
and that I'm living proof of that I'm teaching right now.
Yep.
How could all that stuff happen by accident?
Awesome. Well, Tim, thank you, man. I totally appreciate you taking the time. This did not disappoint. I knew it wouldn't, but thank you again.
Well, you didn't disappoint me.
Well, there we go. There we go. So
It's the only show I'm not going to listen to.
you don't have to listen because you lived it. You lived it.
I wouldn't be able to stand it.
Where can listeners? I know that you are in multiple places on the web.
Out there. Yeah.
How can listeners find you and connect with you?
Place to start is timbedley.com, just like brentcoley.com.
There we go.
I have a YouTube channel, tbed63 on YouTube. Got over 1,000 videos on YouTube. I've got 2 podcasts, the Bedley Brothers, and they can get that on iTunes. And soon, hopefully, I will figure out how to get my new podcast on iTunes. It's called the 5-Minute Mishmash. And it's just 5 minutes, barrage of ideas that I just throw at you from my 29 years of teaching. And it's like, here's a few things, think about it. Maybe one of those will stick and you can use it with your kids.
And for anyone listening, that 5-Minute Mishmash is awesome. I mean, your most recent one about restaurant.
How do you spell
restaurant? And I'll let you guys go listen to that one. But I guarantee you, after hearing the story of what
You'll know how to spell restaurant.
You will never spell the word restaurant wrong again, and nor will your students if you share the story with them. So, well, thanks everyone for listening. Totally appreciate it. As Tim was saying about his podcast, you can find Teaching Tales in iTunes. We're also in Google Play. You can subscribe there. You can also find us on brentcoley.com on the podcast page. If you like what you hear, would really appreciate it. Give us a review. Give us some feedback. If you have any suggestions of people that you'd like to hear from, you can tweet me at Brent Coley or email me. All my contact info is on the website. Once again, thanks so much for listening, and we will see you next time.